Let's talk about strategies for forming referral partnerships to get more roofing sales. In your local market, you probably have a heck of a lot of other contractors that do other trades that you may not do. I would start there. That is the fundamental, the easiest way to develop a relationship, a web of other contractors that do services that you don't do. Trade business to them that you don't do to make sure that you can serve the homeowner best. And then because you give, at some point you will get. Okay, reciprocity is an SOB. I would recommend that you set yourself up to give first, because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing should be in the highest service of the homeowner. So even if you yourself make a little bit less money, a little $4,000 or $5,000 from not doing this other trade that you could have done, you may be able to better show up for them by having someone that's a better specialist in that do that, and or you may be able to spend more time, effort, attention, and improve your process to get efficient enough at the roofing position that you can do it better than anyone in your market. And at the end of the day, it's a big pond. There's no lack of work. You do have a lot of people, especially in major cities, where you've got a lot of competition. You got people out of state, you got people in state, you got people from the city, you got people that have relationships with a bunch of other people. But from a referral partnership standpoint, if you could start with other trades that you don't touch, maybe you do exteriors, they do interiors, trade business. Maybe you do roofing, they do gutters, trade business. Maybe you do roofing, gutter, siding, but you don't do windows and doors, trade business. Maybe you don't do hardscapes, but you do roof, trade business. Maybe you don't do attic insulation, but you do roofs, trade business. Find the other places where homeowners typically are going to need help, and or when you take off a roof, what other things are they typically wanting to do at the exact same time? Find those people, find those companies that you trust, that you would put your name on, that you want to develop a relationship back and forth. It doesn't mean that at some point you both don't start competing with each other, okay? Maybe that's a strategic position that you find yourself in down the road, but for now, why not do not some co-marketing, but some information around how to handle roofing and insulation, how to handle roofing and siding, how to handle roofing and gutters, especially if you want to just stay linear, you want to focus on one trade and not do anything else. I had a conversation with a guy by the name of Raymond Little about Rafter X, pulling Perimeter and then pulling the other couple companies and rolling them up into that PE-backed platform. And he said something that a lot of people disagree with, but I thought was kind of interesting and plays right into what we're talking about here. They only did roofing. So they didn't do any gutters, they didn't do any siding, they didn't do any windows, walls, doors, they didn't do any hardscapes, they didn't do any interior. All they did was roofing. And then they just straight up referred everything else out for all the other trades. So you can take that approach. Now, remember, Rafter X bought Perimeter, or Perimeter exited for multiple 8 figures, okay? And it wasn't 10, but for multiple 8 figures, and all they did was roofing, okay? So there is opportunity to do that, and I would encourage you to challenge yourself to not be small-minded and think that just because I could take money for other things, I don't want to leave money on the table, that you should. At the end of the day, I was actually just listening to something 2 days ago with George Janko and Alex Hormozy, and Alex was also talking about the fact that if you decide to start another business or decide to offer another service or decide to have multiple competing priorities, like let's say you do roofing and gutters, and I know a lot of people, they do both, but just follow me for a second. If you are going to only focus on roofing and your business is in year 3, but then you're like, I want to focus on gutters as well. Well, now you have a business that's in year 3 that's going to take time and attention, effort, and money away from that business that's in year 3 that arguably is probably more developed than your day 0 gutter business. So now if you're saying that, hey, I'm going to take my focus off of this and I'm going to have this, and I'm just going to not leave any money on the table, well, in fact, you're just sacrificing more money, time, attention, and effort over here to grow this thing. And so can this get to the same size as this? Sure, but probably not today. And if you're in year 3 versus you're in day 0, you're going to be in a position where you've got to be careful and make sure you understand what you're doing. Because most of the people that got big and then jump into a ton of stuff, even look at like someone like Tony Robbins, he got his money in one area first. He did an ungodly amount of volume, time, effort, outcomes in one place. And then more I guess you could call it divest, more diversified is probably a better word. Took everything from there and then diversified across a ton of stuff. Look at Alex as well. I was a client at Gym Launch a while back before I was in the roofing space, And same thing there. The dude, he had gyms, and then he had a bunch of other businesses. Then he killed all the other businesses. He sacrificed them at the altar of the gym business, and then stopped the fly out turnaround, and then started the consulting company, and then grew that, exited that to PE, and then jumped into diversifying into a bunch of other stuff. And now look at him at acquisition.com. He didn't start by, lighting 15 matches across the board to do what he's doing today. He started in one thing and got unreasonably developed in it and then moved. And so I would just encourage you to do the same thing over here. You want the ability to have your software in whatever you're doing be able to enable multi-option, multi-structure, multi-trade. But what you also want to be in the position to do is not necessarily have to change your priorities, right, of doing one over the other. So when you're looking at these referral partnerships, my recommendation would be that you start with other trades that you decide that you don't want to do, whether that's everything but roofing or that's, everything but exteriors. Maybe you want to do all exteriors. All good, girlfriend. You do what you want. But regardless of what that is, I would start with the trades, and then I would punch out to maybe other local businesses, right? And then I would punch out, and maybe even like next to the trades, there's realtors and developers and other stuff like that. Maybe there's that. Then I would look at other businesses in the local area. And then I would look at stuff more in the county. And then I would look at stuff more in the state and continue to roll out, or maybe county and then other counties, right? Find other people that you can trade business with. There's a lot of complementary things in the trades versus other businesses. There's also a heck of a lot, like the fastest one here is real estate agents, realty groups, insurance, like homeowners insurance. There's local offices all over the place. You've got a ton of people, the independent insurance agents too. Like some people rock with State Farm and they have their own little office, right? And it's their name and they have a license and they have people under them. There's all kinds of ways that you can do this. I would just recommend that whatever you do end up doing here, you make sure that you connect those lead sources and or have a way to put them into the system where you could track that. So like if you use ProLine CRM to do this, you could be looking at having referral be the lead source and then a referrer, and then you could do referral payouts. You don't necessarily send the money from inside ProLine, but you have custom reporting around that, and you can figure out how much you owe who and how many of your leads are coming from that. But whether you use ProLine CRM or not to do that, I would recommend that you look at the referral partnerships, and then you just need a system that can log those lead sources, and you can look at throughput, right? From marketing through how much money you're making, how profitable are those jobs that you garnered from the referrals, and go from there. And so I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I don't know what to tell you. If it does, hope you make some money with it. Anyways, peace.